What does the new $1 billion rights deal mean for Aussie cricket fans? And how does the streaming landscape look in 2023? Hey there, welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the award-winning tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading technology journalists to dive into the big tech stories of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm not joined by Alex Kidman for our first show of 2023. Alex is kicking back this week, cashing in some of his long service leave, so I was planning my long-awaited supply chain extravaganza. But I'm worried that Alex would lock me out of the Vertical Hold studios for good. So I better go with plan B, and you can probably hear him in the background. I'm joined by a longtime friend of the show. It's TV Blackbox's Steve Molk. Steve, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back, and I just want to go on record. You are always my favourite, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you. So what are your supply chain predictions for 2023 in light of global economic conditions?
Oh, heaps more Lego getting delivered to my place. Heaps.
We'll have to see if that stands the test of time. We'll check in with you this time next year. So Steve's surprisingly enough not here to talk about supply chain. He's here to talk about what's shaping up as another huge year in online entertainment. The global streaming wars could be set to claim a few victims, but first, the Seven Network and Foxtel just dropped $1.5 billion on a 5-year broadcast deal with Cricket Australia. Steve, what's the story here, and how will Aussies be able to watch the cricket online?
I mean, who's feeling cashed up? Well, Cricket Australia right now. That's 1.5 billion with a B,
With a
Adam.
B, yes. I keep struggling with that.
Oh.
Yeah, billion with a B.
Now, there's a lot flying around about this. It is absolutely locked in now, where Cricket Australia and the Seven Foxtel conglomerate have locked away. I actually thought it was a 7-year deal.
So did I.
Adam.
But then as I was researching it, I saw a 7 written somewhere and 5 written somewhere else.
I think the 5 is wrong. I'm fairly confident it's a 7-year deal.
Okay.
Worth roughly $200 million a year with indexation. So, and there's also, but believe this, performance bonuses for Cricket Australia. If the cricket performs well, Seven will pay more money. Now, they're also paying the smallest portion of that $200 million deal. Of course, the bulk of it is going to Foxtel because they want to be the owners of all of the sport. It doesn't take on until the 24-25 season. So we've still got a year, 2 years of the current deal to play out. Once it starts, the absolutely biggest change is that you'll be able to stream on 7 Plus cricket games that Channel 7 air. And that has not been a feature of the deal. Foxtel have had KO and, of course, owned the streaming side of the cricket deal for the longest time. They will still be able to deliver their content via KO. It's just that now 7 will also be streaming the cricket stuff that they are broadcasting, and that is not everything in the deal.
So that's long been a thing with sports on free-to-air television. They might have their online simulcast, but when sport comes on, suddenly either you're watching repeats of I Dream of Jeannie or you're just watching the beep, sorry, we'll be back in however many hours.
Oh, yeah. If you flick over to 7 Plus tonight during the BBL game, you'll get a title card effectively saying this game isn't streamable.
So are we seeing the end of that? Do you think we're getting to the point where we won't see so much of that? Or is this still an anomaly?
No, I think that I guess jumping quickly back to the fact that 7 don't have all of the games in this relationship. They can only stream the games that they are broadcasting. So they can't stream the other things, which in part makes sense because 7 pretend like the other games don't exist. So, if you flip on 7 Plus when there's games that aren't on 7, you'll just get normal Channel 7.
Yeah.
There is no question that streaming has become the biggest cherry in any broadcast rights deal because more, and this is 7, 9 and 10, of course, respectively, playing catch up in all of those broadcast deals. 9 have been ahead of the game by far. But this is 7 finally getting on board with the fact that they want to be able to stream content to their customers because they are seeing a huge growth in their audience market share around digitally, like what we call BVOD, broadcast video on demand, streamed content.
But as you say, Foxtel's kicking in the bulk of the money here and perhaps
Mm.
getting the bulk of the games. Is Seven just a necessary evil that at the third wheel they have to bring along because they won't get the deal if they don't have a free-to-air
Oh,
partner?
look, there's two pieces to this. First of all, Foxtel are getting all of the deal. They're getting all of the cricket.
Yeah,
So they're paying the bulk of it to get all of it. And yes, they while the current anti-siphoning list exists the way that it is, they need a free-to-air partner to be able to buy into this game because there are a number of games listed that are on the anti-siphoning list that must appear on free-to-air television. Um, and interestingly, and let's just look at Seven and Foxtel as the arrangement comparison, right? They've got the cricket together and they've got the AFL together. When it comes to the cricket, one of those games that have to be on free-to-air television right now is the Ashes. And understandably,
yeah,
that is big news. The domestic Ashes have to be on free-to-air television. International, like when we go over to England and play, it's not as important as when England come to play us. Because understandably, most of the Ashes when they're in England happen overnight. So who gives a toss
Hmm.
in comparative ratings terms? So Foxtel can simulcast. They can show at the same time as Seven the domestic Ashes series. But what Foxtel can't do is show the AFL Grand Final. And they kick in an equal percentage chunk, like the sizable portion of both of those deals. But it is Channel 7 who, in the mix of this, say to them, no, we won't let you simulcast the AFL Grand
yeah.
Final, and it's totally their call because it's as the primary free to air rights holder, they are effectively on selling or negotiating to pass on their free to air rights and allowing their subscription partner to pick up, which is why for 10, who was circling in the background on this, and the official word from 10 is that they never made a bid. However, different media have reported different numbers were put on the table, but that, of course, could have just been talked about instead of a formal bid made. The benefit to 10 is that they are, of course, a commercial free-to-air network, and Paramount Plus is their streaming service that could have had the bulk of all of the other stuff that they didn't want to put on free-to-air television. So they could handle both the streaming portion, the subscription portion, and Paramount have deep pockets and were coming to the table without Foxtel.
Hmm. So I want to get into Paramount in a minute, but I just want to look at this Foxtel 7 deal first because
Sure.
there's some matches, some types of cricket that
Yep.
you'll now only be able to watch on Foxtel. Which ones are those? And is it the first time that you won't be able to see those on free-to-air television?
The international T20 and one day international games. So the white ball and the international pink ball, I guess. What do we play with? I don't even know. Basically, the international
Yeah,
BBLs.
yeah.
Um, in the current deal with Foxtel and Seven are Foxtel product only. Seven don't air them. And that was a controversy in this current negotiation, as in the current deal that
The
we're
deal we're
in.
in now, yeah.
Yeah, that was a controversy then because people went, well, hang on, what if I want to watch this? The answer was you have to go to Foxtel. Now, to be fair, your one day internationals have reduced significantly both in the emphasis and the number of them. Remember back in the day, Adam, if you're a cricket fan, there was a whole series of one day internationals, a tri series, where
Yeah.
you'd have 2 or 3 games a week. They were massive. They, of course, went for 100 overs, 50 aside, ostensibly, and people would flock to them. Right,
And you
this was
go to
Kerry
McDonald's
Packer's.
when you're a kid,
Oh,
and on the tray they'd have the poster with the team photos on it and stuff.
the Benson and Hedges World Series
Yes,
Cup,
that's
if
the
you don't
one.
mind.
Yeah.
Back when you could have cigarette brands sponsoring the
Yeah.
cricket. Um, Kerry Packer's baby. Now, they've fallen out of favour in part because the BBL is so much more accessible. Now, we get a bit of a quick history lesson here. 10 and Foxtel have both owned the BBL in its infancy at different stages and poured heaps of energy into making the BBL, so the domestic T20 games, um, as popular as it was, which is why it became something that Seven landed on their radar and they, well, we want the cricket. This would be really good to us. And ultimately, what led Seven to bring a lawsuit against Cricket Australia because A, Seven treated the BBL schedule poorly. B, they absolutely got in the middle of it and meddled with it. And C, the outcome was that the ratings slumped on BBL games since they've been on Seven. So that's why Seven took CA to court over that. And just as a by the way, a neat little line in the agreement that Seven and Foxtel made with Cricket Australia for this new contract was that if Seven and Foxtel got it, they would drop their lawsuit. Nice.
Let's all shake hands and move on.
It's a whole bunch of I cannot get over this. So the BBL was the draw card. In fact, Nine was circling and only wanted to get the BBL because that's something that they could fit in around their tennis commitments.
Is there too much cricket these days? Has it just got out of control? And does that devalue the game when there's just too much of it?
I'll speak as a fan and then I'll speak as a TV commentator, if that's all right. As a fan, there isn't enough cricket, but there's not enough of the right cricket, if that makes sense. As a TV commentator, Seven meddled with the format, and this season there's 60-something games of BBL, and frankly, it's too many. And you're not seeing two or three or four games a week. They're Foxtel exclusives. Even though Seven have nothing else on during summer, they still, as a part of the agreement, gave up a whole bunch to Foxtel. So Friday, Saturday nights, if you want to watch, or Friday, Saturday, if you want to watch the BBL, it's all on Foxtel only. It's a smart move in this new agreement that they have reduced the number of BBL games. Now, I'm a big BBL fan. My family and I love to go to the games and watch them and enjoy them. 63 games this season is too many. So to shrink it back to, I think it's 40-something, 42 or 3 or something in the new contract is a much smarter move. I think it allows them to be much more targeted in how they deliver it and the way they promote it and build it. Also, it doesn't tire out the audience. 60-something games is a slog to tune in for. Plus, and this isn't a feature of the contract, but I just want to put out there, it's great that the test series is over, but parachuting in all of these first-class players to come and play BBL has proven to be a complete waste of time. They've all got, the test games under their belt and they're playing or like, here's a great example. We're Brisbane Heat fans. Second last on the table again. And in the game that played last night recording time, we had Matt Renshaw come back, who had been called up to the Australian side, and we had Marnus Labuschagne and Usman Khawaja, our captain, play their first games for us this season.
Yeah.
We're up to game like 40-something, and our captain just played his first game for us. And we lost miserably. Marnus Labuschagne shouldn't be bowling. His over was diabolical, and it turned the game against us. We don't need these first-class players being parachuted back in for 2 or 3 games. No one cares that much. In fact, what we would like to see is the consistency of our team play the whole season, all 40-something games, and do well. Not have to make way for the fact that, get out of the way, you mob, we've got to let all of the first-class players come in now. Look, the short answer is that less BBL games will be better, but we've still got a whole season where I would expect contractually we'll get 60-something games next year out of Cricket Australia. That's going to be a problem. We've got, tests that interfere with it, and then we've got all of the one-day matches, which Channel 7 don't talk about because they're on Foxtel.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about 10 and Paramount. Now, they had a crack at this. They also had a crack at the AFL, didn't they? They're keen.
10 desperately need a tier 1 sport on their tubes. Yeah. And God bless them, the A-League is not it. Because as much as we want to see, the round ball football grow as a game in Australia, and there are lots of little kids who play round ball football for seasons, parents standing on sidelines supporting and coaching and cutting oranges and all that. That's phenomenal. Something happens where they just get out of that. And in part, it's because the A-League carries, as we've seen across the news for the past few weeks, carries with it a hooligan element that is not family friendly. And that straight away is a problem for your sport being valuable to a broadcaster. If we can't get families there, we don't want to broadcast it. It's not as interesting, and it's certainly not as valuable to us. It's completely reasonable that 10 coming with, US Paramount dollars wanted cricket, wanted AFL, wanted whatever they could get their hands on. And so rightly, they should be lining that up. They should be trying to get that stuff going. It looks like, and this harks back to at least a contract or two ago, where the exiting head of Cricket Australia basically said, hands down, I don't want to do a contract with 10. So that bias appears to have been carried through. I'm not saying that that's the case, but this is what it looks like. Because 10 allegedly were keen to make a bid and basically got frozen out. Cricket Australia didn't want to deal with them. So if you got Cricket Australia not wanting to talk to someone who's at that point, if you believe the reports, wanting to offer more than Foxtel and Seven were going to offer, you've got Nine spinning in the background going, we just want to buy the BBL. Can we have the BBL? What about the BBL? And willing to throw a sizable chunk of money. And that was before they got the Olympics off Seven. If you kick Nine to the curb and you ice out, freeze out 10, your only option is Seven and Foxtel.
Yeah. So why aren't they keen on 10? What's wrong with 10 and Paramount?
With this is the official stuff that got reported was that the Cricket Australia crew were not happy with 10's ratings position or the uptake of viewers to Paramount Plus. They felt that they wouldn't get the audience that, air quotes, they deserved.
But wouldn't it bring in the audience? Isn't that the whole point?
Look, Adam, absolutely. We are, when it comes to summer, two sport tragics.
Yeah.
Right? Even golf has faded into the background, as it rightly should, because that's just a screensaver. We watch tennis or we watch cricket. And 10 could have delivered the cricket, I would say, just as well as 7. In fact, probably better than 7. So as a free-to-air partner, I think 10 would have been fine. The real issue at play here would have been Foxtel losing the cricket. And that would have been not diabolical for Foxtel. It would have upset them, no question. And it also would have meant that a whole bunch of people would have had some pretty serious criticisms, rightly so, about Paramount Plus, because that app still needs a whole bunch of love to get it functioning as robustly and provide the performance functions that, if you look at KO, mate, it's built for sport, right? If you're a sports lover and you don't want to pay for an IQ and you just want to get KO because the app is on just about everything, that's the way you watch sport because it's just so much better.
Yeah. So I'm trying to keep track here. So as you say, the biggest sports in Australia would be, I'll be generous and say football and not just AFL, but okay, sure. AFL/NRL.
Yep.
Cricket and tennis. Am I right in thinking 7 has all of them at the moment?
No, 9 has the tennis now. There was that big changeover.
That's I knew someone had swapped.
Yeah, 9 and 7 effectively changed their summer sports.
Yeah.
Because 7 had, and look, 9, of course, this is the great spin of all of it, pardon the pun. 7, when they had the Australian Open, had 2 weeks of fresh promo leading into the ratings year, where you remember the after the tennis promos that they would run, and in comes this show and in comes that show. Yeah. Now 9 have taken that on, and it is a 2-week burst right before ratings. It if they're lucky, the Sunday night men's final falls on the first night of ratings. It doesn't this year. It's actually 2 weeks early. But so, we count the ratings across the whole year. It's still important. The Oz Open is a great push. All of the other tennis tournaments that 9 cover, frankly, are sideline. They are nowhere near as important as the Australian Open. In the same way as 9 picking up the Olympics, they don't care about what's the LA and London. Are they the next two?
Oh, I don't know.
Because the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane are why they signed that deal.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden they will have another Australian Olympics prime time in Australia ready to go. That is what that whole deal's about. So the Australian Open is a huge setup to the ratings year, and it also means things are pretty contained. Whereas with the cricket, you've got people flying around the country, you've got commentary teams and people in different places all the time. I don't know if you've noticed, but Foxtel have actually stopped flying commentary teams to the BBL games.
No, I didn't realise that.
They're commentating. They've got their local person on the field, their side of field interviewer person, but the rest of the commentary team largely are in Melbourne or they're in Sydney.
Yeah.
So if they're on the job, they're doing it there.
So we haven't even touched on Stan Sport, which is controlled by 9, but then we've got Optus Sport still in the mix as well. Are we going to see other X sport services come along, and what's left to
Oh,
pick over? Like, what's Optasport doing these days? They had a lot of the football, didn't they? Oh, the
and
round
still
ball.
do. Yeah, round ball
Yeah.
football and still do.
So A League's the missing one there. Paramount's got that, and pretty much all the rest of it's on Optasport.
Largely, yes.
Yeah.
There are little bits of stuff, of course, that fall over to SBS. That
Yeah.
they've got other parts of international leagues and those sorts of things. But this again is the challenge of international round ball football. Everyone cares about the World Cup, particularly
Mm.
when the Aussies are in it. This is the parochial nature of who we are. As soon as the Aussies are out, the multicultural nature of who we are kicks in. So you see the Brazilians and the Argentinians and the Croats and everybody jumping up and down supporting their team, and that's amazing. But it doesn't rate anywhere near as much as what the Aussie games
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
when the World Cup comes. When it comes to the like Bundesliga and Premier League and all of those sorts of things, largely you're flying over to Optus. I did have someone suggest that 10 would be best advised to try and get all of the free to air rights for all of those leagues and bundle it up and we become the home of round ball football. That would be a lot of money for no benefit.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to see the rate, as we can see from the A League. They're not going to see the ratings benefit from it, and that's the real catch. So from a round ball football point of view, the A League is running out of broadcast partners, and unless they take a cut in their deal with 10 Paramount when they next renegotiate it, I cannot see it hanging around on a free-to-air broadcaster. They've been through just about everybody.
So we're still pretty much talking about traditional broadcasters and their streaming arms here. But if we look overseas, we can see Apple Plus getting into Major League Baseball, Major
Yep.
League Soccer. We can see
Oh,
Google getting a slice of the NFL. Are we too small for a tech giant of that size, maybe a Facebook or someone like that, to look at one of our sports and go, yeah, we'll have that?
the short answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, to quickly jump back to your last question, is there room for another streaming service to pop up and become like the sports streamer? No, not while Foxtel have all of the major sports
Mm.
and then a whole bunch of tier 2 and tier 3. Stan Sport, to their credit, are trying to grow their library of content. But the Wobblies and Rugby Union have long been out of favour with the Australian audience. So consequently, they get good subscription numbers and people are paying. You have to pay for Stan and then pay for Stan Sport to get it. They're pitching to, a group of people who are willing to pay for that to watch their rugby each week and maybe the NBL, and a few other bits of sport that get rolled into Stan Sport. That's great, and it will grow. That library is one that I know Nine will keep an eye on and try to achieve some good stuff. I would expect if they could, they would try and lock away every NRL game there, but of course their deal with Foxtel doesn't allow for that.
Yeah.
Um, as far as international tech giants looking at Australia, mate, here's the catch. 26, 27 million people total. That's total people. And depending on what the game is in the NFL of a weekend, the ratings for the game is bigger than us.
Yeah.
So there is no benefit necessarily to an Apple TV Plus or a Google or whoever to swoop in and try and get the AFL rights. Plus, they legitimately can't. So that the anti-siphoning list means
They
that they would
still have to
have to
partner with
partner.
someone locally anyway. Yeah.
And I just want to pin that the anti-siphoning list expires, I think it's March 23, March this year. There have been submissions from every corner of the market, as you would expect, to try and say, hey, Australian government, this is what we think you should do with the anti-siphoning list. And that is everything from drop the whole thing and no one care about it anymore, as you'd expect that's coming from your streamers and your Foxtels,
Mm.
to no, we have to protect more sport. Like, you need to protect more sport. And that's coming from 7, 9, and 10. And I actually think it's quite hollow. In 2023, when we pay for Netflix and we pay for Kayo and we pay for Stan and we pay for all of these streaming services, that our television networks they don't pay a license fee anymore.
Yeah, I know. They
And we're
get a lot.
seeing the outcome of this. They should not be hand fed all of these games to say they have to be on a free-to-air broadcaster because that unfairly gives them leverage in the negotiation. And I've actually seen one of the submissions to the federal government, to the Minister for Communications, suggesting that it is anti-competitive behaviour to allow the anti-siphoning list to continue.
At the same time, though, you don't want to be the Prime Minister who lost free-to-air sport on your
Mate,
watch. Australians will
well,
put up with a lot, but they
yeah.
won't.
Well, that's the thing, right? As soon as it became a case of if, and let's use the obvious example, the AFL or the NRL Grand Final or the State of Origin did not have to be on free to air television, then yeah, you'd cop some flack. Of course, the interesting thing is now with all of those deals locked away for 5 to 7 years, you could make that change, and you're probably not going to be the prime
Yeah,
minister
it's
when it
someone else's
happens.
problem. Yeah.
So they would have to then retrospectively, come up with new legislation. Look, the short answer is that 7, 9, and 10 have lobbied hard in the past to make sure that all of the things that they want stay on free to air television. That's the short answer.
Yeah.
What will the anti siphoning list look like post this new iteration of it, mate? That there will be column inches written about that, podcasts talk
Yes.
about, because that's going to be huge news no matter which way it falls.
It's been around since the 80s,
Dawn
the
of time,
90s.
Stephen Conroy.
Yeah, that's what it's great. Not Conroy, so that's the 90s maybe.
Yeah. Stephen Conroy, when he was Minister
Yeah.
for Communications, put that
And
in place
why?
because of the rise of subscription television. At
Yeah.
the time, you had both Foxtel and Optus Vision, if I recall correctly, trying to bid. It was an outcome of the Super League wars.
Yeah.
Where you had, well, we want to have this and we want to have this, and you had, of course, a footy mad electorate hitting up the Prime Minister and saying that can't be the case.
Hmm.
We have to be able to watch it. Now, mind you, it's 2023, and if you're an AFL fan, of the 7 or 8 games that happen in a weekend, there's only 3 or 4 that are on free to air, and same to less for NRL. So, have you really won? Anyone that's serious about their sport pays to watch it now.
Yeah, and depending on which team you follow, like I follow Footscray, the Western Bulldogs, and last time I looked at the schedule, we don't tend to do that well in terms of whether we're the game of the week that makes it the free-to-air television.
No, well, that's an interesting thing in the negotiation around those scheduling, right? The AFL, to their credit, lay out the schedule pretty early,
Yeah.
so that clubs can sell packages and stuff to fans that want to come to games and those sorts of things. But obviously, it's by negotiation with the broadcast, who gets to pick the Friday night game, who gets to pick which game we're featuring on television, and of course, it's going to be based on form and those sorts of things. It's honestly, it's a bit of a sham for fans. There's no benefit to you watching it on free to air television. And what we are starting to see more often than not, it's only fair weather fans, people who are, I'll watch it if it's on, or I've got, a couple of hours to kill or whatever, that they'll tune in and all they will do is bitch and moan about it. Because it's not as good. And then a friend of them will say, here, check out KO or watch it with me, come over and watch it. And this is amazing. Commentary teams are obviously different. And the fact that when you talk about even just the cricket, if you wanted to watch the tests in 4K over the summer, the only place to watch them is on Foxtel.
And
Channel 7 aren't broadcasting anything in 4K.
And that's not, but when you say Foxtel, that's not KO Foxtel. That's got to have a Foxtel box in your lounge room.
You have
Foxtel.
to have a Foxtel box or
a satellite box.
Yeah, an IQ Fault 4 or 5 that have been upgraded to it. I will hesitate to say that I think Foxtel Go allows for it if your screen, I haven't tested this one.
Okay.
But the short answer is yes. Right now, the best you'll get out of your KO app is HD.
Yeah.
But again, this is part of their whole price point and how they want to get you to why you would sign up for an IQ5 is because you can have, and let me tell you, I watched a day of the test in 4K and it was flipping amazing. It looked supreme. And then they turn on, flip over for the BBL after a day of the test and they go, you've got to change channels if you want to watch the BBL because it's not available in 4K. It's like, come on, you guys. I know it's expensive, but come on.
So just looking at the sports rights alone, we're seeing so much fragmentation in terms of services, and then is there enough sport to go around for that many sports streaming services? Let's look at the streaming landscape at large. We've got so many players here. We've got, we could call Netflix old school these days. Your old school players like Netflix, there's so many new challenges that come up against them. can it stay the way it is in 2023? Is 2023 going to be the year of consolidation?
Well, you're ready for this. Just as a quick pickup, Netflix in the US have picked up the global streaming rights for the Screen Actors Guild Awards. Now we know, having just seen the Golden Globes, that not many people tune into these things. They're usually, televisual death.
Hmm.
But for Netflix to pick up the SAG Awards is great news. But if you want to watch it on Netflix, you have to tune into their YouTube channel. They don't, for whatever reason, haven't worked out the mechanism to be able to stream it in
But
their apps.
they are. I did see that they're working on live broadcasts. It was a comedian, Chris Rock, or someone was going to be one of the first people to do some kind of live thing on Netflix.
Again, I want to say it's 2023.
Yeah.
And if you're Netflix and you haven't worked out how to live stream in your apps yet,
There's
mate,
something wrong.
what are you doing? Look, when we start to think about it, Adam, Patrick Delaney, the CEO of Foxtel, said something really interesting at the Foxtel upfronts at the end of last year, that their new focus is effectively like aggregation.
Yeah.
They want to start becoming aggregators. Now, for them, that it means obviously they have a wealth of content: sport, premium drama, lifestyle content, a whole bunch of stuff that you might want to sign up for Foxtel. What we're seeing with them and with Fetch and a whole bunch of other players is that, so that you stay in their ecosystem, they are working with the developers for all of the major streaming services. So if to jump into your Disney Plus or Netflix or Prime Video app, it's just a tile in the menu, and they're promoting that content in their main sliders
Yeah.
on the thing. Oh, what, like, you'll see a promo for Colin from Accounts, you'll see a promo for The Test, you'll see a promo for The Last of Us, like a widget on the screen,
Yeah.
and then it'll pop a Wednesday. The
And
new
that's that
Netflix.
universal search that they've talked about for a long time. The whole thing of, I don't want 10 streaming services and I've got to manually go and look through all of them. And this is something we saw. Android TV was one of the
Yes.
early ones to do it. Even Xbox's TV interface was doing it at one point. Just bring it all to me and show me the highlights in one spot. I think that's what people are looking for, because they've got this, a streaming option fatigue, maybe you want to call it.
Well, and the challenge is, of course, that because all of the hardware manufacturers are playing catch up, not all of the streaming services have agreements and therefore, windows into their service built into your Foxtel or your Fetch box. They're getting there. They're working on it. And now that, Telstra have bought the majority share in Fetch, you watch a Binge and KO app appear, and they're the missing pieces for mine. If you're a Fetch box owner, to have the Binge and KO apps appear in the apps section of your Fetch box will be a game changer.
Yeah.
But you're right, that universal search is huge. The challenge, of course, still is you've still got to have a Netflix subscription, a Stan subscription, all of those things to be able to get to any of that content. Great that you can search for it, but unless you're signed up, it's all for naught, right? But even then, you've also got to know what you're searching for. Like, it's not like you can go, I want to search for a TV show about crime. Let's just say that. It's not like you search for that, you just get all of the Foxtel stuff pushed to the top of the list because they've got a ton of it. Whereas if you go, a friend told me about Stranger Things, and you look up Stranger Things, of course it'll appear with, you've got to go to Netflix, but you've got to have a Netflix account to watch it. So universal search helps, but the challenge with universal search is you've got to know what you're looking for. It doesn't solve the Friday night, Saturday afternoon, inevitable scrolling, I'm looking for something to watch.
Yeah. I guess it
the
goes
only
beyond
benefit
universal
is,
search. Sorry, the universal search lets you search across the platforms, but there's also, and I can't remember the phrase for, where it shows you, as you were saying before, you don't have to search because it shows you, here's the best thing on Netflix, judging by what you like to watch. Here's the best thing on Disney, judging like. So it's like universal suggestions, mate. I'm sure if I went back and looked through everything I've written, there's a better phrase for it than that.
No, but a fair way of explaining it, and that's legit. It's using your browsing history to recommend other stuff in your search engine. So the same in this regard for that. That's helpful. Again, though, the challenge often is, I don't know about your experience, and I appreciate we're probably exceptions to the rule. when I sit down to, air quotes, mindlessly watch something on television, it doesn't matter what you suggest. I'm still going to scroll. I'm still going to go looking for something either on a recommendation of something, so I've got a name or I've got at least and to be frank, I'm not using any of their search engines in those boxes, in those hardware devices to do that search. I'm looking out elsewhere, and I know that Weird Al has come out and said, for people in Australia, if you want to watch my movie, just pirate it, do what you need to do to watch it. I would like to watch it properly. It still hasn't come to Australia. No one has picked it up yet, and I cannot believe that. That is just gobsmacking to me. But I've got a couple of places on the web that I'll go to search, and it tells me every service that has the thing that I'm looking for.
Just Watch is the one that I use. That's
Just
the
Watch
first
is
thing.
the best thing.
Somebody in my
there.
house says I want to watch X. It's like, I can't be bothered figuring out how to watch, where to find that.
This is the way to do it.
Just Watch on my phone, and there it is. And it shows you all the options and which ones are to rent and which ones are to buy and which ones included in your subscription. And it links you out
to them. So you can click on the little N or the little, Prime Video thing, and it'll take you to that service. And if you've got a thing, it'll load up and off you go. At the same time, you can also sign up for a Just Watch account, which is free, and use it as like keeping a library list of the stuff that I've watched or the stuff that I want to wish list.
Yeah.
Which is super helpful. But yeah, like I step outside the realm and go to some other service to manage that for me, to help me to do that. If I'm going to scroll, I want to scroll. I'll go, I feel like something lifestyle-ish. I won't I'll take your recommendation, but I'll probably skip over it, right?
Yeah. So that brings us back to the question, though. Are there too many different services in this 2023 going to be the year that we start to see fewer rather than more?
The answer is for inflation-pressured Australian household budgets. Yes, there's too many services. And there will be not the end of, but certainly some losers this year. People who see, people signing out and not coming back. Some churn in that regard. Will we see more? I mean, we've still got the fact that HBO are threatening to, want to drop their app in Australia, which to me seems antithetical to the relationship that they have with Foxtel.
Yeah.
I mean, they just need to turn up and keep asking for another zero, and Foxtel are kind of in a position where they have to go, sure, please, sir, may I have another? Like just bend over and take it. I don't know. I mean, I know that Channel 7 have a tight relationship with NBC Universal, as we're about to see with the launch of 7 Bravo coming to our free-to-air networks as a multi-channel from Sunday. So you'll see Below Decks and all of that kind of lifestyle-y reality content coming to 7.
So hang on, sorry, that one's flown under the radar. I missed that one.
Okay,
so that's a new digital channel, is it?
It is a new multi-channel.
A new multi-channel.
Yeah, well, seeing how you got your 7-2 and your 7 Mate and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
7 Bravo launches Sunday morning at 6
o'clock. But it's one channel, though.
One channel. It's just
another
7
multi-channel. It itself is not a multi-channel. Okay, I thought you meant it was a collection of 3 or 4 channels. I'm like, how would they fit that? How would that work? All right. Well, so they've renamed one of the other 7?
No, it's a brand new channel. They've wedged in this one into the middle of the mix.
Mate, bro, dude, and bra.
They've got 7-2. They've got 7 Mate. Yeah. They've got 7 Flicks.
I'm glad that you can't even remember. That makes me feel better.
Oh, mate, yeah. And now bringing in 7 Bravo, which technically is the consolidation of 2 or 3 channels of content out of Foxtel.
Yeah.
But it's all rolled into one channel on 7. So you get old seasons of Below Deck. If you've never seen that and you love reality trash, this is the show for you. It's incredible. Yeah. And I think they're starting at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning with like 8 or 10 eps of Below Deck back to back. So sign up and get your fistfuls of that. But so you've got that happening for 7 there. That deal with NBC Universal also means that they've got relationships into some of their other content, including access to their Peacock library, which Stan previously had exclusively. Peacock is not going to launch in Australia. There is no room for it. It would be crazy for 7 to try and do it, whether they rebranded it and delivered as their own thing or just swung wide the gates and let NBC come in. Again, because there's only 26 million of us here. What is the cost benefit to have them swoop in and do that when look, Seven need to get into the subscription streaming game. How they do that is yet to be determined. But just rebadging Peacock is not going to do it.
So HBO in the US, I think, have also done a deal with Discovery, and so that might be the Discovery Network, and so that might be a
Oh,
new
Discovery
combined.
owns them.
Oh, okay. So what does that mean? Because they've got HBO Max there, which is like their online subscription, which we don't have here because that's the stuff that Foxtel has.
Yes.
What new thing is coming over there where as they combine, and is that something that could come here, or is all that content still snapped up by somebody else here, so it wouldn't work?
Yeah, existing deals stay in place.
Yeah.
So, Foxtel have first right of refusal to any of the HBO Max content that sort of appears. And that's where we start to see Stan or Prime Video, because often the deals with HBO are that we'll pick it up and they'll have it for the Americas and Canada, and that's it. So after that, it's like if Prime Video swoop in and go, well, we're going to have it and have it in every other market that we're in other than Canada and the US, great. So HBO Max content is a little bit more fluid in where it lands.
Yeah.
But certainly if it's anything of value, Foxtel will be jumping on that because they've got the inside track into how that works. With Discovery Networks buying Warner Brothers Television, which owns HBO, we now get this big new entity called Warner Brothers Discovery. And that's where the HBO Max, HBO Plus Discovery comes in.
Yeah.
So it's effectively a rebadging and adding in layers and layers and layers of the Discovery Channel's content into that there. Foxtel have got that deal locked up as well. So, it's Foxtel's to lose in that regard when it comes to Australia. And when particularly if we just cut the numbers back, 26 million people in Australia, and roughly speaking, Foxtel have about 15% of the television watching market. So that's 15% of, let's be conservative, maybe 15 million people, maybe.
Yeah. So is there any one service that's particularly in trouble bleeding viewers, bleeding cash? If you had to put money down on which service is either not going to be around this time next year or will have merged or be bought out, which one do you reckon of what we've got available in Australia at the moment?
Yeah, look, all eyes have to be on the Foxtel HBO deal because I think that's currently being worked through. And that will have some big implications for Foxtel if they don't re-sign that deal.
Yeah.
Or are priced out of the market, or if HBO just walk away and say we're not interested anyway. I don't think beyond that there's any streamer that will vanish in the next 12 months. Stan are absolutely in a pickle because they've had a couple of key library relationships end and go to other streamers or other places. And so that's to their credit, to Stan's credit, they've been starting to pump out more and more Australian original content. And that, again, because we are parochial beasts, we will tend to gravitate towards over just generically imported stuff. But
Yeah.
Stan cannot live on the strength of their Australian library alone. They absolutely need another Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad or Yellowstone or that kind of thing. And the catch for poor old Stan is that they've got, in the Yellowstone universe, I think they've got one of those series, but because it's a Paramount series, the rest of it's over on Paramount. So again, they kind of don't talk about the other, the idiot sisters and all of that sort of stuff. Paramount Plus will stay because it's just the deepest pockets in the world making it happen. Netflix is not going away. Prime Video is not going away. Stan has some library troubles, but I'm sure it can deal with them. Who else is left? Disney Plus isn't going anywhere. In fact, they've just got a new CEO who was their CEO before the last CEO, who will be absolutely reinforcing that streaming is a big part of Disney's future.
Well, that just about wraps up our first episode of Vertical Hold for the year. Thanks to Steve again for joining us.
Happy whatever.
So Alex isn't here, so it's my job to hit you with the Vertical Hold 3 questions of doom.
Oh,
You can answer them in any order, but wait until I tell you all
I'm ready.
3. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And the big contentious question, what's the one thing you'd never give up as a New Year's resolution?
Oh, look, simple questions, honestly. TVBlackbox.com.au is the place where you want to go to read about anything that I write, plus anyone else. within the TV Blackbox universe can do, or you can also subscribe to the TV Blackbox podcast and the new TV Binge Box, relaunched, revamped video podcast,
Ooh.
where I'm reviewing 4 shows a week and pumping them out and delivering the show as a podcast and a video, and then also slicing up the individual reviews so that you can just check them out on your socials as well. Because I'm an old man trying to be current, I'm now on TikTok. You can find me at Steve Molk there.
Did your
You
kids
can find
explain it to you?
My daughter did try and explain it. I still don't get it, and I'm publishing and creating content that's in the wrong aspect ratio. So suck it up, princesses. I'm at Steve Molk anywhere that's interesting: Instagram, Twitter, and of course at TV_BingeBox if you want to follow everything that I'm talking about. And this week, just as a sneaky little bit of an insight for you, Adam, this week I'm talking about The Test Series 2 on Amazon Prime Video. I'm talking about The Last of Us, big new HBO content coming to binge this week. I'm talking about another show that escapes my memory, and my favorite international drama of 2022, and you'll have to listen to find out what it is.
Oh. And the thing you wouldn't give up for a
I think
New
I
Year's
wouldn't give up
resolution?
television.
I think
really
that was
simple.
pretty obvious right there. I would have also accepted bourbon, but yes, television. Fair enough. And as always, you can catch us online at Twitter at @verticalholdau or the Vertical Hold Facebook page, or you can head over to verticalhold.com.au. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us and help us spread the good word to be bigger and better in 2023.